I know what you're thinking. How and why did you make this? All of your questions and more will be answered after the explosion. Alright, cool. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.
For long last.
Okay, now that they're gone, the show Smiling Friends is really stupid, and I wanted to show my appreciation by doing some fan art in 3D. I'm using ZBrush in Maya for all of the modeling, and I'm using Substance Painter to texture, and then I'm going to be rendering everything in Maya Arnold. My first order of business was sculpting all of the high poly stuff, and then I really wanted to get better at using Marvelous Designer. It was not necessary at all for this project, but I decided that it was something that I absolutely needed to do. I also worked on both assets concurrently and kind of jumped back and forth between them as I was doing stuff. As you can see, I am a Marvelous Designer expert. I got a PhD in Marvelous Designing, so any art directors watching this, please hire me. After all of the Marvelous Designer shenanigans, the next thing I did was bring it back into ZBrush to get a little bit of a cheap retopo. Just using ZRemesher to get it a little nicer. I wanted to add some thickness, or at least suggest it. If the intention was for this to be animated, I would have done it a little bit differently. But since I'm just making a final flat image, it doesn't really matter as long as it looks good. I use projects like this as an excuse to practice things that I'm rusty on or that I want to get better at. It's a little easier than doing that in abstract. For example, sculpting an iris. I probably wouldn't do that under normal circumstances, but it's like a fun excuse to do it here. Ta-da! And now for the not so fun parts, which is mostly a lot of manual retopology and polygon modeling and UVs, all that good stuff. After UVs comes everybody's favorite part, detailing. This is when the character starts to get even more creepy. A lot of these stupid details are going to get lost in the final render, but I think you feel it more than you see it. Individually, these things shouldn't necessarily call attention to themselves, but they do contribute to the overall effect. The effect that I'm going for is creepy, but with a touch of the original charm. This is kind of why I kept the original proportions, and the details are a little bit more on the micro side. ZBrush layers are also my best friend during the detail phase because I'm a very aggressive detailer, and it's a lot easier for me to just do whatever I'm gonna do and then pull it back with the opacity slider. Sometimes with this approach, I like my original pass so much that I end up just keeping it how it is anyway, and then I just bake the layers down. I didn't record it, but you can extract cavity maps using ZBrush or Marmoset Toolbag. This really helps with texturing. I use it all the time. The way that I approach texturing is I'll usually block out the basic materials and local colors in broad strokes, and then I'll kind of work my way in details down. It's just a conversation I have with myself, like, oh, what type of metal is his belt buckle? What kind of pants is he wearing? Are these jeans? What kind of denim is this? But you really don't need to get that complicated or technical with it, especially for something as stupid as what I'm doing in this scenario. Once I feel like the texture blocking is in a pretty good place, then I'll start to go and mess with the other channels, such as the roughness and the height, just to get a little more breakup and have things look a little more organic. Then of course, just to sell the creepy effect, I gotta give him the cracked out eyes. A little fake ambient occlusion can also help blend the transition from the bug eyes to his head. I tend to use ambient occlusion and curvature maps to kind of boost forms a little bit, but you gotta be careful. You gotta make sure it's subtle. I always do that kind of thing in low opacity bursts, but it can be a nice cheap way to make details pop out, especially with small variations in base color value and roughness. Alright, so you know everything I just said, do it all over again, but for the other character. So yeah, after that I forgot about the 3 little hairs Charlie has on the back of his head, so I went ahead and just threw those in there. And I also modeled the entire environment alleyway. I made decals for all the graffiti in the background. I did the trash cans, the little bits of wood. It was all for the sake of just a final still image, so I didn't necessarily need to do that, but it was just something that I also wanted to do. Figuring out the graffiti was fun. I've done that a couple times on different projects. There's a couple ways of going about that. You can do what I initially do here, which is just create an alpha that you can use on a fill layer. I also ended up painting a few of them just straight up as transparent PNGs to project directly, and then what I end up finally doing on the last ones is just painting them directly in Substance Painter. I hate XGen, and CG Groom in general is pretty annoying, so I just took the t-shirt into ZBrush and generated some fiber mesh just to get a couple like pieces of fuzz to make the t-shirt feel a little more realistic. Same thing with the hoodie. After that though, it was just really a matter of fine-tuning the lighting and setting up my render layers for compositing. Once the renders finished, I exported them as multi-channel EXRs and I brought them into DaVinci Resolve Fusion to do my compositing. You can use Nuke to do that too, but I don't know about you, but personally I'm not rich, so I'm going to use the free application to do that. My compositing's a little bit rusty, so you know, any compositors watching will probably tell you I'm doing a lot of this inefficiently or wrong or whatever. It's fine, I'll take it. I'm pretty much just trying to rebuild the render with all of the separate AOVs so I can boost the different channels like specularity and diffuse individually. And I have the render layers broken up into the characters and the background, which I'm then just merging back together. What I'm doing here is using a Z-depth channel to add a little bit of haze to the background and separate the characters from the background just a little bit more in like a subtle way. Something else I did with just some color grading was to suggest a little bit of like a sunset type of thing with this half shadow. But all these things, you need to be very subtle with it. They don't want to call attention to themselves. yeah, here you can see some of the progress as I kind of built out the scene, some of the compositing, how the lighting ended up looking, some look development turntables so you can see how cool the textures and the final models turned out. But yeah, I hope you liked it. This is such a stupid show for me to have spent this amount of time on a thing, but you know, it was fun. I enjoyed it, so hope you liked it. Thanks, bye.